Hi everyone. I'm hoping to be able to come on here maybe once a day, maybe once a week, not sure, and kind of just talk about soul stuff, like spirit stuff. I talk about spirit all the time and I use these terms all the time, and I'm not really sure that everybody knows exactly what I mean when I say certain things. There's also a lot of terms flooding the internet that some people, I feel like, don't fully comprehend what it means or what they're trying to kind of express when they use this particular term. So I thought it would be really fun to pop on and just talk about some things. All of this information that I talk about in these little videos will be in my book. They're in my book, Spiritual Development with the New England Psychic Medium, but they will also be in my new book, Creation in a Different Depth with More Understanding. Of course, like in this video, I'm just trying to do a quick explanation. I know not a lot of people have time to be sitting on here for hours at a time and listening to all this stuff. So I thought it'd be really fun to just talk about certain soul terms so that when I explain something, we can all kind of be on the same page. So one thing I wanted to discuss was the idea of heaven and hell. A lot, obviously that's been going around forever. Everybody's heard of it. We all kind of have our own idea of what heaven and hell is. And it seems that it can take on a different meaning depending on your culture and how you were raised. So I'm going to share my understanding of heaven and hell based on what I've seen in my sessions with my clients and through, the Akashic records and soul evolution and past lives and all of that. So when I understand heaven and hell, what I see are two polarities, and I see a planes of evolution. So we have literal vibrational planes that exist in space throughout, they kind of organize our dimensions. Each dimension will be on a different plane. Here we have the barrier. The barrier is like what I call point zero. It can be looked like as a number line. So if we have zero, the negative polarity or hell really is the equal and opposite side of this barrier. So this is where we get into the negative planes, and this is where we have, the first plane of the negative polarity is going to be less intense than the 30th or 40th or 50th plane of the negative polarity. So essentially it's like going into the depths of hell. The deeper you go down, the more chaos and destruction you're going to face, because that is how that polarity functions. On the equal and opposite, we have merger and creation, and that's where we exist here on Earth. Earth is slowly being infiltrated by, negative influences. And the reason is because it's chaos and destruction versus creation. So it's almost like a super enticing candy store. And that's why we get all these demonic entities that kind of come through our barrier, but they don't come in legally. They essentially come in illegally by sneaking through when people misuse gifts, or they aren't careful about their surroundings or protection, or they aren't sure how to protect themselves and their home and their families from the intruders, essentially. And I have a rare gift of seeing kind of everything, so I can see the difference between a haunting and a demonic entity and then a spirit that has crossed over and evolved. So I can see when I'm letting them in by accident, therefore I can correct them and then train that. So what we have is, of course, when you're born on the side of creation and merger, the side of destruction and chaos seems really very scary, right? Because if we were to go over there or astral travel into those dimensions by accident, we might find ourselves being surrounded by these really destructive, scary entities that just don't, they're destroying in chaos. That's their MO. That's how they function. And so we might be scared, and it might be really terrifying, and it might even give us nightmares. But the truth is that one cannot exist without the other. What we have is an exchange of energy. So what is destroyed on one side gives the other side energy to create. and then, when we have a planet or star that destroys, it goes into the opposite barrier where it fuels creation on that side, and the energy goes back and forth and back and forth, and that's literally what creates this infinite energy of time and space that fuels all life. So just like we have life and death here on Earth, it is simply a balance of life and death. But what keeps it infinite is the fact that it is in fact separated, because all that is cannot exist with all that isn't on the same exact plane, or one would consume the other and we would have nothing. So it's not a point of judgment, it's a point of recognizing the system and process and how it works, and how it is in fact necessary to have both polarities, the light and the dark. People, you don't get punished by being sent to hell. What happens is your energy will resonate. If you lived thousands of lives, destroying and creating chaos, then you'll eventually resonate with the lower dimensions, and you will simply live there. You chose to live there through your actions. Your energy now resonates with it. It's not like a place of punishment. You don't make one mistake and they don't throw you into lower dimensions. It's lifetimes of this repeated patterns of chaos, destruction, and self-abuse and abuse to others that will push you into that frequency where you just feel at home. So it's not really a point of punishment, and it's not a point of like a lot of people say it, if you're not good, you go to hell, or if you cheat on a test, you go to hell. That's silly stuff. You don't go for such silly things. You have to have lifetimes and lifetimes of choosing negative things to end up in a place like that. And it's because your energy resonates with it, not because you're being punished. So I wanted to explain that heaven essentially is on the side of creation, it's our home. So everybody actually has a different heaven, and I want to make that very clear. There are billions of soul groups. I'm going to explain next what soul groups are, but there are billions of soul groups in the cosmos, infinite amounts so every planet or star is a soul group in itself. So if we think about it, like how many stars are there? Infinite. So that's our home. Where we were birthed is our home. That's our heaven. Heaven will look different for everyone. It's a different, we go home to our people when we cross over, but we can always travel. We can always interconnect. It is a vast network of spiritual connections and portals and all this. So we're not stuck home. We can all travel and visit everybody else as we choose. Obviously, because we're here. So it's not like people think. It's not like we all go into the same, we're all technically going into the same cosmic body. So in that way, we're always interconnected. But we do have different houses in that cosmic body. And those houses are the planet or stars we were birthed on. So let's talk about like soul origins and soul groups. If we all know that scientifically in space, like a planet or star is created by the accumulation of mass in space. So we have material that has been in motion kind of collapsing together to create some kind of energy and, some kind of mass. And then how that mass is labeled depends on the scientific weight and, the material and the location and how it's spinning. So what I want to point out is that when we create physical mass, when we collect physical mass, that physical mass has an energetic code. That energetic code brings with it information on soul group birth. So essentially, I call it cosmic DNA. That cosmic DNA will merge together and create a very powerful soul group architect. A soul group architect begins taking those codes and making a group or family in its image. So it creates a soul group. Now, the energetic composition of that clashing and the material that comes together is what decides where it lands on the vibrational plane system. So if it's collecting a lot of really dense negative energy from, very destructive soul groups that went rogue and started destroying each other, then it's going to end up on the lower planes. Naturally, it will resonate with that energy, and that's where it will kind of end up and accumulate and develop. But if it has a lot of creation and love and empathy, and there's a lot of creation and merger, then it's going to end up on the higher planes in terms of vibration. Now, every planet or star has the opportunity to create a soul group. And this is what most people call the term star seeds. I like to explain it because a lot of people use the term not really understanding that star seed is, all of us are star seeds. It's actually rare to be born of Earth. And the reason is because Earth is fairly new. When we look at our galaxy, Earth is a fairly new planet. So it's a rarity to have souls of Earth here on Earth. There just makes up about I think it's 20% of Earth's population are Earth-born souls. The rest of us are actually star seeds. So we are of the stars. We were created in other planets or stars, and we incarnated onto Earth through the Akashic realm. The Akashic realm is where we do all of our life planning. Essentially, we go into the Akashic realm if our soul group is compatible to Earth's atmosphere. That's really important because, like I said, there are infinite amount of soul groups, so why don't we have them all here? And it's because their souls are simply not compatible to Earth's atmosphere. So some of them will in turn take jobs as healers or spirit guides or life planners or gatekeepers, and they will help in other ways, but they can't physically take over a physical body. They can't incarnate. They can't drop into a vessel. And it's simply because they're not compatible. Our chakra system is actually the soul to body integration. So when we incarnate, we use the chakra program to resonate to Earth. So if you're on Earth, you should have chakras, but there are some soul groups that have a very hard time with the chakra program, and they haven't been able to adapt to it. And I've only met one soul group so far, and there are only 10 beings on Earth, so it's a very rare issue. But there are people on Earth who don't resonate to Earth enough to take on the chakra program, and they have a very, very hard time here. So, the chakras make us very comfortable here on Earth, and they're like a filing system of all of our experiences. So essentially it's organizing all of our soul's information into a filing system that we call chakras, and it allows us to integrate to Earth, and it allows us to comfortably sit here, and it allows us to find the trauma, heal the trauma, and it gives us tools, and it shows us what blocks are. So it is a really grand system if we could really tap into all of the codes and information that our chakras provide us. So we integrate to Earth, but we plan our life in the Akashic realm. The Akashic realm is soul records. So there's a lot of information about the Akashic realm that just isn't true. In the Akashic realm, we have an Akashic library. The library is not a place of books and shelves. It is an infinite fifth dimensional database. It is more like a web of information. It is just like a cloud. There are literal stars there. They actually have a star map. So what happens is when we go into the Akashic realm, what we see are a collection of stars and planets, and it's just sorted in a fifth dimensional database way where we can click open up, and then we see the information and history on that particular planet or star. And that is how that works. And there we can see the souls born, and then we can see their records, and we can see their incarnations, right? So it keeps going down and down and down and down. It's a filing system. It is an informational system. One of the most common misconceptions is that any and everybody can access all Akashic records. That's false. I mean, when we think about it, the Akashic records are records of all that ever was and is in all of life and all of existence. It is a highly protected database. Without that database, we would lose a lot of our understanding and a lot of our records and a lot of our history and a lot of the tools we use to heal people here on Earth. So it would be incredibly protected. But also our past lives are stored there. And our past lives are, we could have, psychologically, opening up a trauma somebody isn't ready to face could destroy that person. Now think about having 700 lives and maybe 300 opportunities for trauma. it would just be too dangerous to allow anybody to dip through, not understanding how to work trauma, heal trauma, and help people guide through that trauma. Therefore, it is incredibly protective for the safety of people, but also because the records are invaluable. You know, they just have no value. They're just too important. So we don't have anybody access the records. What we have are guides of Akasha that work on the outside of the records and actually have been vetted for lifetimes and work there for, you know, billions of years, and they protect the records and they actually give information to people outside of the database. So they're like the delivery program, and they might give it to a guide that works with a person. They might give it to the person directly, or they might work with somebody, but that's how they deliver records to people who need them. And even then, all of us can access our own records. It is part of our subconscious database. So our subconscious database is your higher self, your master soul. Your master soul has the information of all of your incarnations of your soul's birth and soul group. But if you don't know how to understand it, it kind of sounds like a foreign language. It just is very hard to comprehend. So if we haven't evolved our gifts enough or healed enough, it can kind of sound like somebody yelling at you from underwater. The point is that you have it and it is there. And that with enough practice and training, you can access it, but it's not like it just pops to you with super clarity right away. So we all have access to our own records because it's our job to heal them. It's our job to kind of work through them and give ourselves the opportunity to heal ourselves. They're your memories and your experiences. Therefore, they're yours to keep and work through and heal. So when we do our life planning, we choose the people that are in our life. We choose the karmic debts we want to repay. We choose our struggles. We choose our lessons. We choose the time frame we're going to incarnate based on how that works with our lessons. We choose our astrology to support our goals. All of this is pre-planned in the Akashic realm. We still have free will. And remember, it's us planning it, right? Like, I decided what I was going to do. I decided what I was going to take on. Nobody was forcing me to do it. This is all pre-planned, and we kind of are dropped in with this roadmap. But just like any other person, we could refuse the roadmap. The roadmap is a guide based on the best decisions for us and how we can make the most out of this life. And most people ignore the roadmap because we still have free will. So they can do whatever they want anyways. We still have free will. If we didn't have free will, we would be living in paradise. There would be no mistakes. There would be no issues. There would be no fighting. There'd be no war, because our souls would never choose that for us. But our human body, our human conditions have a lot of lessons, a lot of free will that we're working through, and free will is the lesson, right? That is why we're here. That is why we incarnate, and that is why we're human. It's literally part of the human experience to make mistakes and work through things and understand ourselves better. And that is the only way to evolve the human form, is by understanding free will and using it for your betterment and for the betterment of others. So there would be no growth if we just kind of came down and were puppeted. And there would be we would be evolved by now. It wouldn't have taken us this many years. So we come into Earth and we take on our lessons, and we try to balance our karma. Karma is another word I wanted to talk about today. A lot of people use karma and they don't really understand the depths of the meaning of karma. Karma is energy. It's like money. Karma is energy. Energy is infinite. It is infinite because it is balanced. Like we mentioned earlier, everything has positive and negative polarity. Everything needs a positive and negative polarity to create infinite energy, because you have give and take, give and take, give and take, and it cycles energy, which creates motion. Motion is life. So exactly like that, karma functions the same exact way. There is give and take, and karma has to be balanced. Therefore, you have to return what you take, and you have to give. If you've taken too much, it's just necessary. And the reason, it's not really even forced, but it creates a void, and that void, we have this constant need to fill it. So it's almost like so uncomfortable for us that we want to pay back those debts. I mean, who likes being in debt? It's a really crappy feeling. So we choose to pay back those debts, but also understand that debts created on earth have to be paid on earth because they were created on earth. So we have to pay back earth. Earth is a really dense incarnation. So if we had a life here and we created debts and we tried to pay that debt off on another incarnation somewhere else, it would have likely statistically be a lot less dense. And that means that we might have to do 300 lives or incarnations to pay back one incarnation on earth because the density of the energy. So it is mathematical in a way. It has to create balance. So most souls understand this, and that's why they don't hesitate to reincarnate, because they know, well, I gotta get my debts paid before I'm done with this lesson, before I'm done with this incarnation, before I'm no longer incarnating here, because I definitely don't want to carry that for a lifetime, and I don't want to have to pay it 300 times over somewhere else. So it is much easier to pay it here. So essentially it has to be paid here. Or you could have like infinite, we're infinite souls. Imagine carrying around a debt for infinity. That would be really overwhelming. We don't want that. So there's no actual force to pay these karmic debts, but it's so uncomfortable that most of us want to come back and pay them off. And like I said, it's just like money. Some of us take out too much, and some of us save up and, spend what we've saved up. So we're allowed to do both. Paying back karmic debts isn't always punishment. People like to assume that like the saying, karma's a bitch. That's not really the case. I've seen people in past lives who, killed and hurt people, and then their karmic debt repayment was being a healer, being a doctor, being a nurse, giving life. So it doesn't have to be like a super negative thing. It can be a very beautiful, balancing statement. Now, because we talked about starseeds, I just wanted to discuss one particular soul group that I think is really fascinating, and there's a lot of misconception about this one particular soul group all over the internet. A lot of people want to say that they're indigo souls, and I'm going to explain something to you. All other souls, as we mentioned earlier, are born of the planets or stars, right? Star seeds. The only one that is not are the indigo souls. An indigo soul was kind of like a science experiment because we were having such a hard time evolving through Earth, and Earth is a very rare experience. Like I said, with the really dense energy of Earth, it has been very difficult to learn Earth's lessons and evolve through Earth. And essentially the goal is to fully integrate our soul to our physical body so that we are just as smart as we are at soul level here in the physical experience, and we can kind of bring that down and ground that soul level knowledge while being physical humans. So it's a merger of both life, the physical and the spiritual, on one planet where we can really integrate and evolve and move forward in all aspects of that, kind of have a life built in soul, or heaven on earth, really. So because we're having such a hard time, it takes about 1,000 incarnations for people to evolve here on Earth. 1,000, that's a lot. On other places, it might be like 10, it might be 100, but here it's 1,000. So again, it's a lot. And by the time we get through half of this, we have carried so much trauma because we don't have a lot of healing tools in our history. We are working on it now. We are in like 200 years, people who are incarnate into Earth will have tools available to them as babies. They will be able to face their past life traumas, reconstruct their soul, understand their origins. They will have all this information taught to them in schools where we have, math and science. They'll be able to learn about their actual origins and soul so that they can continuously heal their emotional energy and body. And that's, like I said, the heaven on earth aspect, right? Where we can be soul in a physical body. We can respect science, we can respect math, we can respect all these things like history, but we can also respect the fact that we are souls in a physical incarnation. So we wanted to kind of help people along, and we thought of this, by we, I mean like Grand Council manages incarnations and soul and all of the things here on earth. They are the ones that kind of it's like immigration police. They are managing these soul groups that incarnate on Earth and what's going on here on Earth. And they are a collection of many different soul groups, and they have had many different lives and experiences. Some of them are ascended masters. They're very wise souls that create council, and a council that manages what goes on here on Earth. They decided that the best way about this was to create a soul group that was made for Earth. In a way that it should be able to combat the issues we're experiencing here in this incarnation, which means instead of having this like intense soul amnesia, that they would be hypersensitive and they would feel and see everything with great intensity. It means that they would be able to hopefully evolve faster through Earth. They would be able to connect to their soul experiences and higher self at a more intense rate without the blockages and without the issues of Earth's density. So in order to combat the density, they would have to be incredibly hypersensitive beings. So it was a good idea, but the first 100 incarnations or so of these indigo souls are very difficult experiences. For example, they are so hypersensitive that they have a hard time functioning almost at all. They can be nonverbal. They are so overwhelmed. They don't see an image. They see 1,000 images. They don't feel something. They feel at times 1,000. They don't, they have skin sensitivity, sensory issues, expression issues, a hard time connecting or even looking at people, a hard time understanding things because they see somebody and they see everything about that somebody. So it can be very, very overwhelming. And they need caregivers usually. So an indigo soul that has incarnated here usually needs a caregiver, and that caregiver is usually a Nihal. There's like a contract there where the Nihal takes care of the indigo soul. Eventually they become more comfortable here on Earth and they are able to kind of function more, but they still have this kind of strange aesthetic to them. I like to use, I know that a lot of people don't like Harry Potter right now because of the trans comments, and I don't support the negative comments that were made by the author. I think they were a little insensitive, very insensitive. But they do remind me of like the Luna character there, where she is kind of spacey and disconnected, but very blunt and bold about spirit and what's coming through. Eventually they get to a point where they're still kind of strange and they still have a hard time managing the human experience and fitting in, but they are like literal transmitters to spirit. It comes through them all the time, and they could be little kids and they could be sitting at the park and they're like, trees speak to me, and it might feel a little bit weird for humans, but it's what we needed. The issue is that a lot of these indigo souls are so uncomfortable with the human experience that they actually don't want to come back. So it's not really working out for us. We have not made them comfortable enough. And unfortunately, it kind of sets us back a little bit, right? Because they were supposed to help us and now they don't want to come back because it's so overwhelming here and they can't. It's just painful. It's absolutely painful. So it's interesting because a lot of people claim to be indigos, and I'm just like, the fact that you're having a normal conversation with me and functioning is not, it's a red flag that you probably aren't an indigo soul. They do have a very hard time. I have met a couple that, like I said, are functional and can have conversations, and they are very in tune with what's going on around them, but it's still very clear that they're indigo souls, because like I said, there's always kind of like that unpersonal disconnection from this reality, and it's a survival mechanism. It's a protective barrier because it protects them from feeling too much and overwhelming themselves. So I want to do this more and more. I want to jump on and share more terms about spirit and soul because I talk about it so much and I write about it so much, and I know I'm not the greatest writer, but I feel like when I speak things, sometimes it just comes through a little bit easier. And I want everybody to know what I'm talking about if I say something, like Starseed or Indigo or Soul Group or, where we're born, I think, or Akashic Records. I think that it's really important for people to understand the terms so that they can actually do something with the information. And like I mentioned earlier, these terms are in my book spiritual development with the New England Psychic Medium, but they're also going to be in my new book in greater depth. And my new book is called Creation. I'll share a link. I'm doing pre-sales for the book with a bunch of informational videos. It's like a package. The videos are currently being edited and uploaded. And the book, I still don't know when exactly it's going to be out. I have had a really, like everybody else, right, this whole year has been wild. So it was supposed to be out by August, but it's definitely not. I'm still working on adding, and then of course, everything happens for a reason, I say. So like, of course, after that, I got a bunch of different information and downloads and more to add to it, and it just keeps coming through. So as long as Spirit's giving me all this new information, I'm going to wait and add it to the book. So it's almost like the longer we wait, the better it gets. But it is, I'm hoping that it will be out there pretty soon. I now have help at home, which is great. And I will be spending more time, hopefully, like I said, doing this and catching up on work and being able to put the book out there. So thanks, guys, for listening. If you liked the video, please share, tag people, kind of, bring people into it, because I'm hoping to keep feeding off of this one. So like, if you come in next week and you don't have this information, it might be really hard to keep up. So if you enjoyed it, please share. And I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening.